Hello and welcome to the show. On today's Nurburgring challenge, I shall be driving the Dodge Viper GTS ACR. The challenge, in case you haven't seen one of these before, is I will attempt to drive this car around the Nurburgring quicker than the lap time set by the vehicle in real life. In this case, my target time is an 8 minutes 10. The reason I picked the Viper is because I really do quite like Dodge Vipers. One of my favourite cars around, and this one actually has a lap time for me to compare it against. It also was going to be a bit of a change of pace, a little bit more of a challenge than the Lamborghini. The Lamborghini that I drove last time, big, safe, four-wheel, safe-ish, as safe as a Lamborghini gets, four-wheel drive supercar, whereas this is very much different. The Viper has somewhat of a reputation for being difficult to drive. I'd never really driven this car in Forza 5 very much, so I thought this would be a challenge, trying to race this vehicle around one of the tightest, twistiest, nastiest race circuits that there really is. 8 minutes 10 is also not a completely preposterous time for me to try and beat. The Viper is a mid-B class car. I thought the target time would be fairly tricky, but I thought I stood a chance at least of trying to beat it. For this run, the Viper is kept completely stock as far as I can tell. The one that was driven around in real life was stock as well, so this one is being run with no upgrades, no tuning, or none of that. So yeah, with the Viper's reputation, these were always very quick cars around a track. They were just not that user-friendly, shall we say. They were, for what I've read, what people said about them, these were always a little bit more difficult to drive around tracks. The brakes supposedly weren't quite as good. I know this is the ACR version and everything, but yeah, these were supposed to be a little bit scary, a little bit tougher to drive than the competitors, really. It's kind of hard actually to where would you categorise this car. I always put these as super muscle cars. They're kind of muscle cars, but they're a bit faster, like the Vipers, the Corvettes. Yeah, this one is not at all how I expected it to be. This is much easier to drive than I thought. I was expecting this to be horrible. This next corner that's coming up, you brake and turn in at 130 miles an hour. It's a completely blind corner, and the Viper is okay with it. I didn't expect it to be doing that at all, actually. I was expecting to be fighting this car, going sideways on a lot of the corners, especially through some of the very high-speed stuff. But no, the back of this car remains firmly planted on the track. This section down here is not too much of a problem for many vehicles. It'll be flat out down here. The next corner is flat out as well. It's at the top of this hill that the Viper is impressive. It's a brake, a downshift, turn in. The back of the car doesn't let go of the road, which I wasn't expecting that. There is no big fancy aero parts. I know the Vipers have humongous tyres, which certainly helps. We do get a little bit sideways on the exit there, but yeah, I did not expect this car to have as much high-speed grip as it actually does. It's a remarkably good car drive. It's remarkably cheap as well. 48,000 credits for this. Maybe not quite as good value for money as the Camaro ZL1, but it's not far off, to be honest. Power-wise, it has a 460 horsepower. Not quite as impressive as the modern Vipers, but this car is from 1999, I think. So it's a fair bit older than some of the muscle cars I've been driving. It was a recent video. The Mustang, yeah, the Mustang has 600 odd horsepower. The modern Vipers does the modern one have over 600, possibly. But it's still fairly good power, fairly good value for money on the performance front. A few of these corners, you're the gear's a little bit long on here. So most of these corners are second and third gear. This one, I think, kept it in second through here, and you will occasionally see the back of the car twitching around, which is not really surprising, but it's incredible how well the car stays on the road. I ran a tiny bit wide through there, put a wheel over the curb, and that's where we do start to have problems. I'm not sure if this is a problem unique to the, well, it's certainly not unique to the Viper. I don't know if it's particularly bad in the Viper, but these curbs are horrible at Nurburgring. They really are very nasty. This corner that's about to come up is one of the worst. You might as well have a wall instead of a curb for some of these. They are so severe that if you kind of turn in and bump the curb, it forces your car out wide. If you turn in at speed and you do that and you just clip a curb, it'll just bump you straight into a wall, and there is nothing you can do about it. So you've got to be very mindful of the curbs on here. If you just brush them sort of slightly as you go past, that's what causes a problem. If you really attack them, you can kind of get away with it. They are a horrible thing that you have to be very aware of. I try to avoid them as best I can. Some of them, like that one there that I'm just going past, that's absolutely fine. But there are some really horrible ones, and did have a few problems with the Viper. I just got to keep it off the curbs, pretty much. I ran a little bit wide through that corner. Again, these are some very, very fast corners. It's just a lift and a turn in, and still the back of the Viper would remain just about planted. Through the high-speed sections, it was incredibly good. It really was. Some of the low-speed sections, putting the power down, had to be careful on. But yeah, it wasn't the sort of off-power oversteer or the very high-speed scary oversteer that I was expecting from this car. The carousel is a weird corner driving it in this. I don't know. Again, I don't know if this does this in other vehicles. The Gallardo it didn't do this with. But basically, you turn into the carousel with the Viper, and you have to keep it on maximum steering. If you try and adjust your steering angle while going through the corner, it will either spit your car out into the wall off the top, or you will hit the inside and it will spin around. So you kind of turn the car in, keep the steering on full, and then kind of adjust the throttle accordingly to keep the car in this tiny, narrow little groove to get it around the... It's very odd. I don't think I've ever driven another corner like it. I don't know if it'll do it with other rear-wheel drive cars. The Lamborghini, it was fine, just turned in and it didn't have any problems. But in this, it was it was a balancing act with the throttle to get it around. This next section, or this sort of the final half of the lap, then all becomes much more technical. The opening section is a lot more about high-speed corners. There are a couple of slow speed, there's a hairpin in there, but this final section is an awful lot more technical. You spend most of your time changing between second and third gear corners around here. Again, the Viper held its own around here. It really wasn't particularly bad. The brakes were good. I didn't have any problems on the braking front here. And yeah, it has an awful lot more grip than I was really expecting. Again, you're carrying quite a lot of quarter speed through here. I was getting a little bit sideways through some of these corners. There's another odd... I'm not sure if this is a Viper characteristic or what it is, but I was finding when you go through a few of these sequences of corners that if you ended up going sideways through, say, the first one, you could correct it in time for the second one. You'd still be in the right place on the road, but you'd then find it much more easy to go sideways through there, and then for one further down the line, say it was a 4 or 5 corner section, you would just end up, if you slid through the first one, you'd end up sliding through the next 2 or 3. I'm not sure whether that's maybe just slightly overheating the tyres, possibly, or whether it's just a characteristic of the Viper. Made it a little bit twitchy and a little bit, I wouldn't say difficult to drive. On this run I was okay. On some of the previous runs I'd had a few very big slides and lost control of it. It's just something that you had to get used to with the car. You really can't afford to let this car start sliding around. It's very easy to let it start sliding around and then you lose so much time. But if you keep it together, it is all very quick. And that was only a real problem at the slow speed corners. As I said, high speed, it was really very, very stable, very planted. Then we have a nice long brake down this straight. Long gears of the Viper here are a little bit weird. 5th gear does very little for it. I could keep it in 4th if I wanted all the way down here. Change up to 5th makes very little difference. Gearing perhaps a little bit too long for the Viper. The final section is flat out through the first part, then slam on the brakes and again get it stopped. It was performing admirably through the corners and on the brakes. These final couple of corners, not really much to them. This is a very tight, nasty final corner as we head towards the line in the Dodge. Yeah, it was a lot better. It was a hell of a lot better than I expected it to be. It was good fun driving it around. Very stable and surprisingly very easy to drive. Got to be a little bit careful of some of the slow speed corners, as is to be expected with this much power and this much torque. But yeah, really very, very nice car to drive. Now onto my lap time. The target was an 8 minute 10. I did a 7 minutes 45.7. I went an awful lot quicker. I was to be fair, that lap was very, very fast. I think I lost about half a second. I was keeping an eye on the split times. I lost about half a second. I was 4 seconds up on a previous best, and then by the time I crossed the line, it was 3.5 seconds. But other than that half a second, there was not an awful lot of time left. Well, from me anyway, in that car. I was really, really pleased with that lap. Yeah, this is a blooming nice car to drive. It really is. Good fun around the Nurburgring. Pretty scary at times. But that's, well, I think that's more to do with the track than the car. Yeah, a really, really good car, this one. Very good value for money. And yeah, easy to drive. Easier than it really should be. However, there we go. I beat the target time by some 15 seconds. Can't really complain too much about that. Next time out, I think we will probably be having an NSXR. Lots of people wanted to see me have a go with that. So I think we will have a go with the Honda. However, until then, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.